Hello everyone, it's me Muskan Goyal, and in this video we'll be talking about Nepal's budget for the year 2081-82. Now, starting off with what actually a budget is. A budget is an official financial plan that outlines a government's expected income, which is revenue, and how it will be spent, which is expenditure, over a specific period, usually 1 year. It reflects the government priorities and how it aims to manage the country's resources. And it is actually very crucial for the country's development in order to guide development plans, ensure proper use of resources, reduces inequality and poverty, promotes economic growth, and lastly maintains stability and accountability. So, starting off with the objectives. First is promote growth in production, productivity, and jobs. So, by supporting agriculture, industry, and infrastructure development, the government wants to generate jobs and raise the overall output of the economy. Second is support private sector confidence and drive investment. This includes simplifying regulations, offering tax incentives, and promoting economic activities through public stability to help business thrive. Third is invest in people through education and skills. The government plans to invest in education, training, and youth development so that people are better prepared for jobs in a changing economy, especially in IT, health, and technical fields. Fourth is ensure fair use of resources to reduce poverty and inequality. This includes targeted programs to uplift vulnerable populations and reduce income gaps while ensuring balanced development throughout the country. Fifth is improve government services for citizens. Through digitalization, better management, and coordination among agencies, the budget aims to enhance the quality of services people receive from the government. Priorities of the budget: economic reforms and private sector growth. The budget focuses on reforming outdated economic policies, reducing barriers for businesses, and encouraging investment and entrepreneurship to drive growth. Next is development in key sectors like agriculture, energy, IT, tourism, industry, and infrastructure. The government plans to modernize agriculture, expand energy production, develop IT hubs, boost tourism, grow industries, and build roads, bridges, and airports to support long-term economic growth. Third is strengthening education, health, and other social sectors. A significant part of the budget is allocated to improving education quality, healthcare access, and other essential public services to build a stronger society. Fourth is inclusiveness and social protection. The budget aims to reduce inequality by providing social security programs like pensions, disability support, and targeted aid to low-income families and disadvantaged communities. Fifth is good governance and better public service delivery. The budget includes steps to fight corruption, digitalize services, and strengthen institutions to ensure people get quality public services in a fair and timely manner. This slide shows the total budget allocation of Nepal from the fiscal year 2074-75 to 2081-82, highlighting the government's financial trends over recent years. Starting from 1,278.99 billion NPR in the year 2074-75, we can see a steady increase in the budget until the year 2076-77, where it reached 1,534.97 billion NPR. However, in the year 2077-78, there was a slight dip to 1,474.64 billion NPR, likely due to the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic and its effect on the economy. From there, the budget began to rise again. reaching 1,647.97 billion in 2078-79 and peaking at 1,793.83 billion in 2079-80. The following year, in 2080-81, there was a minor decline to 1,751.31 billion, showing a more cautious or conservative financial approach. Finally, in the latest fiscal year 2081-82, the budget has increased again to 1,860.3 billion NPR, which is the highest budget allocation so far. This indicates the government's growing investment in development, public services, and infrastructure. Main sources of revenue. The largest share comes from tax revenue, contributing NPR 1,260.30 billion. This includes income tax, VAT, custom duties, and other taxes collected by the government. Next, foreign grants amount to NPR 52.33 billion. These are funds provided by foreign countries or international organizations to support development projects in Nepal. Lastly, a significant portion, NPR 547.67 billion, comes from internet and foreign debt. This means the government is borrowing both domestically and internationally to meet its budget requirements. This slide highlights how the total budget of the Nepal is allocated across three major areas. First is current expenditure, which is allocated NPR 1,140.66 billion. This is the largest portion of the budget. It covers day-to-day government expenses such as salaries of government employees, pensions, administrative costs, and social security allowances. The high amount reflects the ongoing operational needs of the state, which must be met to keep public services running smoothly. Next is capital expenditure, which is allocated NPR 352.35 billion. This part of the budget is focused on developmental projects such as building roads, hospitals, schools, hydropower plants, and infrastructure. Although smaller than current expenditure, it is crucial for the long-term growth and economic development of the country. Increasing this allocation in future budgets could help improve infrastructure and generate employment. Third is financial management, which is allocated NPR 367.28 billion. This includes debt repayment, interest payment, and management of financial obligations. It ensures that Nepal maintains a healthy credit profile and meets its existing financial commitments both domestically and internationally. Nepal's economic growth rate over the last several fiscal years. In 2076-77 BS, Nepal's economy recorded a strong growth of around 6.70, driven by post-earthquake reconstruction and increased investment in infrastructure. However, in 2077-78 BS, the country saw a sharp decline, with the growth rate falling below 2.40%. This was primarily due to the COVID-19 pandemic, which severely impacted economic activities like tourism, remittance inflow, and overall business operations. The economy rebounded in 2078-79 BS with a growth rate of about 4.20%, showing signs of recovery as lockdowns were lifted and sectors slowly resumed normal activities. The momentum continued into 2079-80 BS, where the growth rate peaked at nearly 5.80%, nearly 6%, reflecting strong performance in agriculture, industry, and services. In 2080-81 BS, however, the government rate slightly dipped to about 4.40% due to global inflation, reduced remittance inflows, and domestic market challenges. Now, in 2081-82 BS, the government expects the growth rate to bounce back to around 5.50%, nearly 6%, fueled as an increase in capital expenditure, better tourism performance, and recovery in global trend. What is green tax? Green tax is a form of environmental tax that is imposed on goods and services or activities that are harmful to the environment. The purpose of this tax is to encourage environmentally friendly behavior, reduce pollution, and generate revenue that can be used for environmental protection and substantial development. Why was it implemented? To control pollution, especially from old vehicles that emit high levels of smoke and harmful gases. Next, to encourage environmentally friendly practices, which means it promotes the use of clean energy and newer vehicles. To generate funds for environmental conservation, the revenue collected is used in activities like waste management, reforestation, and renewable energy promotion. Last is to align with global climate commitments. Nepal aimed to show initiative in tackling climate change issues and reduce dependency on fossil fuels. Here's how the tax is structured. Coal and petroleum products manufactured from coal are taxed at 0.5 rupees per kilogram. This discourages excessive use of coal, which is a major source of air pollution. Similarly, coke and other related products are also taxed at 0.5 rupees per kilogram for the same environmental reasons. For petrol and diesel, a tax of 1 rupee per litre is applied. This is meant to reduce dependency on fossil fuels and encourage the shift toward electric vehicles and cleaner energy resources. Lubricating oil, petroleum oils, and other mineral oils are taxed at 1% of their value. These oils, if not handled or disposed of properly, can contaminate water and soil. Lastly, other oil products are taxed at 0.5%, ensuring broader coverage of petroleum-based pollutants. This tax structure not only helps generate revenue but also serves as deterrent against environmentally harmful practices, encouraging businesses and individuals to adopt greener alternatives. Implementation. Transformation in agriculture sector. Second is development in energy sector. Third, development of information technology sector. Fourth, promotion of tourism. Fifth, entrepreneurship and industrial development. First is transformation in agricultural sector. The new fiscal policy 2081-82 in Nepal aims to strengthen and modernize the agricultural sector, focusing on increasing production and productivity through a decade of agricultural investment. This includes promoting commercial agriculture, integrating technology, and encouraging private sector involvement. The policy also emphasizes enhancing agricultural research capacity and providing subsidies for credit, tax, and loan waivers to encourage market access and commercialization of agricultural goods. Here's a more detailed look at the key impacts. First is focus on modernization and commercialization. Decade of agricultural investment. This initiative aims to re-evaluate the agricultural sector through modernization, technological integration, and substantial investment from both public and private sectors. Next, agricultural modernization. The policy emphasizes investment in modernizing agriculture to increase production and productivity, potentially through improved farming techniques, irrigation systems, and technology adoption. Third, specialized agricultural areas. The policy identifies special areas for focused agricultural development based on geographic and ecological conditions, promoting regional specializations and efficient resource allocation. High value crops. The government is encouraging the production of high value crops like fruits, herbs, and organic products, which can contribute to higher income for farmers and enhance export potential. Next is investment in research and capacity building. First, enhanced agricultural research. The budget allocates resources to increase the capacity of agricultural research agencies, including the Agricultural Research Council, to develop new technologies and improve agricultural practices. Next, development of technologies. The policy aims to develop 75 additional agricultural technologies to enhance productivity and efficiency. Third is financial support and incentives. Subsidies and waivers. The government plans to provide subsidies in credit tax and loan waivers to encourage commercialization of agricultural goods and market access. Insurance for small farmers. The budget allocates funds for premium subsidies on crop and livestock insurance, providing safety net for small farmers and reducing the risk of production losses. Talking about the overall impact, the new fiscal policy aims to create a more vibrant and competitive agricultural sector in Nepal, leading to increased production, improved livelihood for farmers, and greater economic growth. By focusing on modernization, technology, research, and financial incentives, the policy seeks to transform the agricultural sector into a key driver of economic prosperity. Next sector is development of energy sector. The fiscal policy for 2081-82 in Nepal significantly impacts the energy sector by improving renewable energy resources, increasing electricity generation, and encouraging private sector participation in transmission lines. It also aims to boost electricity exports to Bangladesh. Here is a more detailed breakdown. Key impacts on our energy sector. First is renewable energy focus. The budget encourages the shift from fossil fuels to renewable energy sources with a specific emphasis on solar energy development and research on green hydrogen. This aligns with the country's goal of reaching zero carbon emissions by 2045. Next is increased electricity generation. The policy aims to add 900 megawatt of electricity to the national grid and increase per capita consumption. This will involve investing in new hydropower projects, including the Upper Arun projects, and so on. Private sector involvement. The budget encourages private sector participation in developing electricity transmission lines, which is crucial for expanding grid infrastructure and ensuring reliable power delivery. Next, export arrangement. Nepal aims to export electricity to Bangladesh in addition to its existing export arrangements with India. This will require investments in transmission, infrastructure, and capacity building. Tax incentives. The budget includes a tax reduction for solar energy and an increase in tax on EVs. The increase in tax on EVs may be counterproductive to the goal of transpositioning the electric vehicles. Financial allocation. The Ministry of Energy, Water Resources and Irrigation has been allocated a significant budget of NPR 87.55 billion, and the total amount that has been invested or has been allocated in this sector is 50.74 billion. Now, talking about the next sector, development of information technology sector. So, the total amount of 7.35 billion has been allocated for this sector. The new fiscal policy 2081-82 in Nepal aims to significantly boost the information technology IT sector by declaring the decade of 2081-91 BS as the decade of information technology. This policy includes initiatives like developing Nepal as an IT hub, creating IT parks, and allocating funds for ICT projects. The goal is to generate significant employment, boost IT service exports, and promote Digital transformation. Here's a more detailed breakdown. First, declaring the decade of information technology. This signifies a strong government commitment to promoting and developing the IT sector. Next, developing an IT hub. The policy aims to establish Nepal as an regional IT hub, attracting investment and talent. Third, creating IT parks. IT parks with high speed internet, security, and other infrastructure will be developed, providing affordable spaces for IT businesses. Allocating funds for ICT projects. There is a substantial budget allocation being funded in various ICT projects, including broadband expansion, IT park development, and digital infrastructure upgrades. Next, promoting digital payments and e-commerce. The policy will support the growth of digital payments and e-commerce platforms, further boosting the IT sector. Tax incentives and rebates. The government is planning to offer tax rebates to IT companies that reinvest their profits. Last, legal framework for AI and data privacy. The policy includes plan to develop a legal framework for artificial intelligence (AI) adoption and data privacy, which is crucial for future of the IT sector. Next sector is promotion for tourism. The new fiscal policy for the year 2081-82 in Nepal aims to boost the tourism sector by attracting 1.6 million tourists, increasing infrastructure development, and promoting new tourist activities. This is supported by a dedicated budget allocation of NPR 11.91 billion to Ministry of Culture, Tourism and Civil Aviation. The policy also emphasizes public-private partnerships and aims to create a supportive ecosystem for youth and women entrepreneurs in the tourism sector. Here is a more detailed look. Increased tourist arrivals. The government aims to attract 1.6 million tourists through various promotional activities including road shows and fairs in major tourist destinations. Infrastructure development. Significant investment is being made in infrastructure, including new airports and roadways, to enhance connectivity and facilitate tourism. New tourist activities. The policy encourages the development of new and exciting tourist activities such as paragliding, skydiving, and other agricultural tourism options, especially in areas with unused resources. Pilgrimage tourism. The government plans to promote pilgrimage tourism by offering direct transportation services from border cities to religious sites like Pashupatinath Temple and Muktinath, particularly targeting Indian pilgrims. Destination development. Janakpur is being developed as a wedding hub and Lumbini as an birthing hub to attract destination wedding and enhance the overall tourist experience. Next, public-private partnerships. The policy emphasizes the role of public-private partnerships in infrastructure development and promoting sustainable tourism practices. Last, support for entrepreneurs. The government aims to create a supportive ecosystem for youth and women entrepreneurs in the tourism sector by providing resources and incentives. Talking about the next sector, which is entrepreneurship and industrial development. So, the total amount of 6.55 billion has been allocated for this sector. The new fiscal policy 2081-82 in Nepal aims to stimulate entrepreneurship and industrial development by providing financial support, promoting investment, and enhancing the business environment. This is achieved through various measures, including allocating funds for startup, establishing incubation centers, promoting public-private partnerships, and streamlining regulations. This policy also focuses on supporting youth and women entrepreneurs, promoting domestic industries, and enhancing the IT sector. Here is a more detailed look at the impact. Startup Fund. the government has allocated a significant amount of money, which is NPR 1 billion, to start the fund, which will be used to support startups across the country. Incubation centers. Plans are in place to establish business incubation centers in each province, providing a supportive environment for startups to grow. Next, promoting loans to startups. The budget encourages banks and financial institutions to provide loans to startups, particularly those with collateral. Public-private partnerships. The budget emphasizes the importance of public-private partnerships, especially in infrastructure development, which can create a more favorable business environment. Investment companies. The government encourages the establishment of investment companies by the private sector to attract, mobilize capital for investment in various enterprises and infrastructure. Whom does it impact? The budget changes in Nepal for the fiscal year 2081-82, which is 2024-25, impacts a wide range of stakeholders including taxpayers, businesses, and the general public. The budget aims to promote economic reforms, improve the business environment, and boost key sectors like agriculture, energy, and tourism. Specifically, the budget introduces tax changes, particularly regarding value-added tax, which is known as VAT, and aims to address taxpayers' concerns related to tax assessments. Here is a more detailed breakdown of who is affected. Taxpayers. A budget processes addressing issues related to tax assessments, aiming to improve fairness and trust in the tax system. Notes prior laws associates. These are also changes to VAT with certain goods and services previously exempt now becoming subject to VAT, potentially impacting consumer spending. Next, businesses. The budget aims to improve the business environment by revising investment and industry laws, encouraging private sector participation, and promoting entrepreneurship. It also includes provisions for public-private partnerships to revive closed industries according to NBSM. General public. The budget aims to improve the lives of citizens by promoting good governance, social justice, and prosperity. It includes provisions for social welfare and creation of employment opportunities. The budget also introduces a green tax on petroleum products and coal, which could impact consumers. Specific sectors. The budget focuses on boosting key sectors like agricultural, energy, information technology, tourism, and industrial development, potentially impacting business and individuals with these sectors. Government. The budget outlines the government's priorities for economic reforms, fiscal management, and development of social sectors. Monetary sector. The budget's monetary policy includes amendments in bank rates and policy rates, which can directly impact the monetary sector and indirectly affect the real estate sector of the economy. Lastly, economic growth rate. Now talking about the economic growth rate, we can see that during 2077-78 BS, there was a decline in the growth rate. It was due to the effects of COVID, and after that the economic growth rate increased. Then the growth rate is expected to rise in the year 2081-82 BS. The reason for the increase is driven by few key sectors, including a projected increase in remittances, government efforts to boost power generations and energy exports, and broad-based revenue growth as well. Let us now look at the income tax highlights from the fiscal year 2081-82. To begin with, income tax is a direct tax levied on the income of individuals and businesses. It's a major source of government revenue used to fund public services like education, healthcare, and infrastructure. Now, let's go over the major changes and highlights from this year's budget. First, the definition of the permanent establishment has been broadened. This means that the scope of businesses or operations considered taxable under Nepali jurisdiction has expanded. It helps in taxing foreign companies that have a significant presence in Nepal. Second, there is no dividend tax on capitalization of profits into bonus shares specifically for IT industries. This move is expected to encourage reinvestment of profits within the tech sector and support startup and innovation growth. Next, any payment above 25,000 that is not made through a banking channel will not be allowed as deductible expense for tax purposes. This is a push toward more transparent, traceable financial transactions and reducing cash-based dealings. Another key point: business funds must not be deposited into personal accounts. This reinforces financial discipline and aims to prevent the misuse or mispresentation of business income. Also, if a company brings in new capital from shareholders for the purpose of expansion, it will not be treated as a change in control under the Section 57 of the Income Tax Act. This is important because it protects growing companies from being penalized simply for raising expansion capital. The budget also announced that transfer pricing guidelines will be developed by the Inland Revenue Department, that is IRD. These guidelines will ensure that multinational companies fairly declare profits in Nepal are taxed accordingly. And lastly, there is no change in the tax rates for both individuals and corporate entities. This provides stability and predictability for taxpayers in the coming year. Important amendments that are being made from that of existing provision from the year 2080-81. First, digital presence now taxable. A permanent establishment now includes digital presence or data servers used for transactions in Nepal for 90 plus days. This means foreign companies offering digital services in Nepal like streaming or outline platforms may now have to pay tax if they maintain a consistent digital presence. Second, e-billing made compulsory. Businesses must issue invoices electronically and link them to the Central Billing Monitoring System (CBMS). This ensures transparency in transactions and help the government monitor tax compliance in the real time. Third, ban on business deposits in personal accounts. Business-related accounts received via any medium can't be deposited into individual bank accounts. This step prevents revenue leakage and promotes proper tracking of business income. Fourth, dividend tax exception for reinvestment. Industries reinvesting profits into expanding their own capacity are exempt from dividend tax, including IT and tourism industries, which encourages business to reinvest profits instead of distributing them, helping in growth and job creation. Clarification on contribution-based retirement payment. Clear definition introduced for payments made to approved retirement funds by both employer and employee, meaning it makes it easier to identify which retirement-related incomes are taxable, which are exempt. Next, strict penalties for software manipulation. If billing software allows deletion or tampering of data, a fine of Rs 5 lakhs will be imposed, aimed at preventing manipulation or digital records for tax evasion. Seventh, advance tax on imports. Revised rates of advance tax collection at customs, that is 10%, 2.5% and 1.5% depending on product type. Meaning it helps the government collect tax earlier, improving revenue collection and regulates imported goods. 8th, salary payments must be banked. Monthly salaries over NPR 25,000 must be paid through banks to be deductible as business expenses. It means that it discourages cash payments and strengthens financial transparency. Last, limitations on tax refunds. Excess tax collected at customs under 95KA7 will no longer be refundable or carried forward, which means it prevents misuse of refund provisions and ensures finality in tax collection. Next, talking about the VAT, which is value added tax. First, it's important to note that the VAT remains unchanged at 13%. This means that the standard 13% VAT continues to apply to the supply of the most goods and services just as before. There is no increase or decrease in the rate itself, so the businesses and consumers can accept continuity on that front. However, there has been important revisions to the VAT registration thresholds, and these changes directly affect which businesses are required to register for the VAT. Let's break them down. For businesses dealing exclusively on goods, the new threshold for mandatory VAT registration is NPR 5 million in annual turnover. This means if your business sells only goods and your yearly revenue exceeds NPR 5 million, you are required to register for VAT. For those dealing in services, the threshold is lower. If your business provides only services, you must register for VAT if your annual turnover exceeds NPR 3 million. And for businesses that deal in both goods and services, the registration threshold is also set at NPR 3 million in combined turnover. These revised thresholds are designed to make VAT compliance more proportional and reduce the administrative burden on smaller businesses. It also means that smaller service providers and mixed businesses need to be more vigilant in tracking their revenues to ensure they register on time if they cross the threshold. New amendments in the value added tax that has been made from that of the year 2080-81. First, expanded VAT registration for non-resident persons. In new provision, the non-resident persons providing electronic services or offline air transport services in Nepal with a turnover of more than Rs 30 lakhs in the past 12 months must register for VAT. The registration and cancellation process will be as per the rules of the department. Whereas in the previous provision of the year 2080-81, only electronic services were included and the threshold was Rs 20 lakhs. Second, revision of the VAT cancellation threshold. In the new provision, VAT registration can be cancelled if annual turnover is below Rs 50 lakhs for goods. Second, if it is below Rs 30 lakhs for services or mixed goods or services. And in the previous provision 2080-81, the service threshold was Rs 20 lakhs. Third, penalty for delay in return filing. In new provision, if a taxpayer fails to file VAT return within 4 months of the due date, the tax officer may suspend import-export rights. But in the previous provision for the year 2080-81, no such provision had any time existed. Talking about the excise duty. Excise duty is a type of indirect tax that is levied on the production, sale or consumption of specific goods or services within a country. Unlike VAT, which is applied broadly, excise duty targets certain goods, products, often those considered luxury items, harmful to health or environmentally significant. This includes alcohol, tobacco, fuel, and in recent years, vehicles including electric vehicles. Now, let's focus on the recent changes in the excise duty for electric vehicles in Nepal. The government has made adjustments to the duty rates based on the power output of electric vehicles, measured in kilowatts to create a more tiered and equitable structure. Here's how the revised rates now look for cars, jeeps, and vans. For electric vehicles with the power less than 50 kilowatt, the excise duty is now 5%. Previously, the vehicles were not taxed at all. So, this introduces a modest new charge for low-capacity EVs. Vehicles with power between 50 and 100 kilowatt are now taxed at 15%, up from the previous 10%. Those in the 100 to 200 kilowatt range now face a 25% excise duty, which was previously 20%. In a positive shift, vehicles with power between 200 and 300 kilowatt will now be taxed at 35%, down from the earlier 45%. This is a reduction likely to incentivize higher-end EV adoption. And finally, the most powerful EVs, those above 300 kilowatt, will face an excise duty of 50%, reduced from the earlier 60%. In addition to this, a flat 5% excise duty has been introduced for transportation vehicles, specifically four-wheelers used for public or commercial transport. These changes indicate the government's attempt to balance revenue generation, environmental priorities, and affordability in the electric vehicle market. The adjusted rates also reflect a strategic move to encourage the use of mid to high range electric vehicles while still collecting duty from lower capacity models. Important amendments that has been made for the year 2081-82 from that of the previous year. First, expanded definition of tobacco products. New provision now includes electronic cigarettes, that is vapes, and hookah flavors as tobacco products. Previous provision only included pan masala, gutka, bidi, cigarettes, cigars, etc. And it matters as it broadens the scope to regulate new tobacco alternatives like vapes and hookahs. Government aims to control tobacco consumption in all forms. Second, excise duty refund for damaged and expired goods. New provision clarifies that excise duty can be refunded or deducted from the goods lost due to fire, theft, accident, or expiry of product. And it matters because it supports fairness for businesses, preventing them from bearing tax burdens on unusable or destroyed goods. Third, change in tax exemption for old diplomatic vehicles. In new provision, no excise duty on diplomatic vehicles older than 10 years was 15 years before or damage due to accident, technical reason. And it matters as it makes it easier for diplomatic missions to dispose of vehicles without tax hassle, encouraging proper disposal and replacement. Fourth, introduction of excise ticket system. In new provision, mandatory use of excise tickets for certain excisable goods produced exported in Nepal. Ticket format and usage defined by the department. It matters because it ensures better tracking and control of excisable goods, helps track reduce black marketing and tax evasion. Fifth, definition of fake excise tickets. In new provision, fake excise tickets now clearly define, example, reused tickets, false QR codes, wrong industries, etc. And it matters as stronger legal clarity to crack down or counterfeit excise tickets, protecting government revenue. 6. Destruction of damaged excise tickets and expired goods. In new provision, excise tickets or goods like expired tobacco, beer, or wine can be destroyed under a committee's supervision. Even if quantity is unclear, destruction is allowed with the proper documentation. And it matters as it ensures transparent disposal of unusable goods and tax stamps. It prevents illegal use of such goods or excise materials. 7th, stricter penalties for underreporting or excess stock. In new provision, if a company under-recovers excise duty, they face a 100% fine on the shortfall. If extra stock is found during the inspection, 100% fine based on the market value will be imposed. And it matters as it introduces strict reinforcement against tax manipulation and unrecorded production. It encourages accurate bookkeeping and tax compliance. Now, talking about the custom duty, what actually it is. So, custom duty is a type of indirect tax imposed by a government on goods imported into or exported out of a country. It is collected by the customs authority at borders, ports, or airports. Here is a key points in a little more detail. Purpose. Custom duty serves several purposes as it raises government's revenue, protects local industries from foreign competition by making imported goods more expensive, and regulates trade to ensure safety and compliance. There are majorly three types of custom duty. First, import duty, charged on goods brought into the country. Export duty, charged onto the goods that are sent out of the country. Anti-dumping duty, imposed to prevent underpriced foreign goods from harming domestic industries. Now, rates. The rate of custom duty varies based on the type of goods, their classification, and trade agreements. For example, luxury items may attract higher duties, while essential goods or raw materials might have lower or no duty. Major highlights of the custom duty. First is abolished tariff exemptions. One major update is the abolition of the custom tariff exemptions for goods imported from the Republic of India and Tibet, the autonomous region of China. This means those imports will no longer enjoy duty-free status and will now be subject to standard customs duties, potentially affecting cross-border trade and pricing. Second is exemptions from the custom duty. Some essential materials will continue to enjoy full exemption from custom duty. These include uncovered waste and scrap paper, which supports recycling industries, unwrought aluminium, used in manufacturing and industrial applications, and unwrought zinc, another important industrial raw material. These exemptions help reduce production cost and promote industrial activity. Third, concessional duty, that is 1%. A concessional custom duty of 1% has been introduced on selected items that support agricultural and rural industries. Steel milk cans imported by agricultural and dairy firms, bidding mats for cattle brought in by livestock industries, and certain electric vehicles as a part of efforts to promote clean energy. These reduced rates aim to lower operational costs for key sectors and encourage sustainable practices. Fourth, electric vehicles duty adjustment. While some electric vehicles benefit from concessional duty rates, there has also been an increase in custom duty on the import of specific electric vehicles, especially high-powered models. This reflects a more targeted incentive policy rewarding environmentally friendly options while adjusting for revenue and market impact. Lastly, 1% duty on cattle breeding mats. To specifically support the livestock industry, bidding mats for cattle will now attract only 1% custom duty when imported by recognized livestock firms. This concession helps improve animal welfare and reduce cost for rural farmers and livestock businesses. Important amendments that has been made. First is audit time limit reduced. New provision says custom due audits must now be conducted within 2 years after goods clearance. However, in case of fraud or false documents, audits can still be conducted after 2 years with approval, whereas the previous provision stated time limit was 4 years for regular audits. Second, shorter public notice period for unclaimed goods. New provision says customs will issue a 7-day public notice for unclaiming goods, whereas previous provision denoted the notice period was 15 days. Third, clear exclusion of cargo rail containers for forfeiture. New provision: forfeiture applies to parcels, packets, or containers used in illegal goods except containers used in the cargo rail, whereas previous provision stated no such exceptions, all containers could be forfeited. Fourth, updated legal reference for customs duty definition. New provision: Custom duty is now clearly defined as per the Custom Tariff Act 2081. Previous provision referred generally to laws without specific mention, and it matters as it enhances legal clarity and consistency, ties customs operations more closely to the newly updated Custom Tariff Act. Fifth, references to Custom Tariff Act for classification. New provision states classification of goods must be verified using Custom Tariff Act 2081. Previous provision was use the Finance Act for clarification, and it matters as it ensures harmonization with international tariff standards and simplifies classification. Lastly, the sections that are removed are 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 11, 72, 73, 74, and 75, and it matters as it indicates a streamlining of law by removing outdated or redundant provisions, paves way for digital customs reforms or new procedures in the future. So, for the conclusion, the budget for the fiscal year 2081-82 reflects Nepal's effort to balance economic recovery with the long-term development. With a total budget of NPR 1,860.3 billion, the government emphasizes revenue generation through taxes, responsible borrowing, and effective spending. Key reforms include support for IT and agriculture, promotion of digital transactions, green tax enforcement, and transparency in income and custom policies. With no major changes were made to tax rates, structural improvements signal a shift towards accountability, economic stability, and growth. If implemented efficiently, this budget could help strengthen Nepal's fiscal discipline and support sustainable development. That's all from my side. Thank you.